All praise and thanks is due to Allah. We praise Allah. We seek assistance and forgiveness from Allah. And we seek refuge in Allah from our lower selves and from the wrongs that we sometimes commit. Whoever Allah guides, no one can misguide. And whoever Allah leaves astray, no one can guide. And we bear witness that there is none worthy of worship besides Allah, the one who is unique and has no partners. And we bear witness that Muhammad ﷺ is Allah's servant and messenger. قال الله تعالى في القرآن الكريم وإن كذبوك فقل لي عملي ولكم عملكم أنتم بريئون بما أعمل وأنا بريء بما تعملون. And if they accuse you of falsehood, Allah says, then say to them, my work to me and yours to you. You are free from responsibility for what I do, and I am free of responsibility for what you do. Then Allah says further, نحن أعلم بما تعقلون وما أنت عليكم بجبار فذكروا بالقرآن من تخاف وعيد. Allah says, and we know best what they say, and you are not to subdue them by force, but through reminders in this Quran, and to such who fear my warning. So these two verses speaks about freedom of belief, that speaks about freedom of action, and speaks about freedom of expression. And as we may observe in these two verses, one cannot force someone to believe the way you do, and you can't force somebody to act the way you deem appropriate, and you can't also force somebody to say what you want them to say. People will say things, people will do things, and they will express in the way they feel through their own experiences and to their own understanding. And if you do that, that is a form of oppression. And so the Quranic answer to this human right of expression is, let them, and let each take responsibility for their own beliefs, for their own actions, and for their own expressions. So basically what Islam is saying, that you can't control, you can't do a mass control thing, because somehow you're going to lose that battle, because you can't control the minds of people. But you can teach people to be responsible about what they say, what they do, and how they act, and how they express themselves. So in the light of these freedoms of speech that the Quran affords people, I'd like to read a piece of an email that I received this week, and this is why I based my talk on this today. Just a short piece. The person says, my name is Alice Nkom, and here in Cameroon I am one of the only attorneys who defend people who've been jailed because they were gay. In the last 2 weeks, violence against gay people in Cameroon has skyrocketed to unprecedented levels. The situation is quickly becoming a crisis. The President of Cameroon can put a stop to this, and if he feels enough pressure, he will do so. In watching police in Cameroon conduct an anti-gay crackdown, over 10 people have been arrested on charges of homosexuality, and they put homosexuality in brackets, because how do you charge somebody for homosexuality? In the last month, one of them, Jean-Claude, have been sentenced to 3 years of imprisonment merely for sending a text message to another man. I've heard countless recent stories of homophobic violence throughout the country. I'm 66, and in the last 10 years of defending lesbian, gay, bisexual and transgender rights for people in Cameroon, it has never been this bad. So certainly the violation of people's right to express themselves. And as much as Salman Rushdie, I'm not sure if you're familiar with Salman Rushdie, but as much as Salman Rushdie had been criticized for his book, The Satanic Verses, Salman Rushdie had two wisdoms. He wrote two wisdoms in his book. In one of it he says, what is freedom of expression? Without the freedom to offend, it ceases to exist. In other words, if you are still being censored, you are not having complete freedom. Someone else will still control what you can say or do because they have been offended. So, and this is common. I mean, we don't even have to go out there. Just look between people. If you say something, sometimes the other person won't agree and they'll be offended. But can you stop yourself from expressing yourself just because somebody else is going to be offended? So therefore that person who's being offended should also take responsibility of how he's receiving that message. Right? And he also said a book is a version of the world. So somebody who writes a book, he writes the book based on his view of the world. If you don't like it, ignore it, he says. Or offer your own version in return. And what he is saying is about his own book is that it is in his experience that he's written that book. It is from his point of view, it is from his judgment. His version of the world as he sees it. And if you do not like it, he says, then you can ignore it, or you can bring your own version that you feel is better than his version. And he's exactly saying the same thing that the Quran says. وَإِن كُنْتُمْ فِي رَيْبٍ مِمَّا نَزَلْنَا عَلَىٰ عَبْدِنَا فَأْتُوا بِسُورَةٍ مِّن مِثْلِهَا. That if you are in doubt as to what we have revealed, if you're questioning the Quran, then you try and bring something better than that. Okay? So when Salman Rushdie published these books, he did not intend to offend Muslims as much as Muslims have taken offense. So again here it's about the responsibility, because you can't stop people from writing about what they want to write. But you as a Muslim can take responsibility for what you receive. So how does one respond when you feel that somebody has said something against your beliefs? Also, when the Danish newspaper a couple of years ago published the caricatures of the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ, and Hindus and Christians were burning copies of the Quran, how did Muslims respond to that? And they certainly did not hold the Prophet and the Quran in the same light as Muslims hold them, because they come from a different kind of experience about the Quran and the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ. But Muslims had a chance in this to respond with positive information about the Prophet ﷺ and the Quran, and thereby using this opportunity to enlighten those who do not know the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ and who does not know the Quran, and in turn restore the honor of the Prophet and the Quran. But most Muslim at that time when it happened, they preferred to react, and some of them even reacted violently. So I want to reflect a little bit on why some Muslims react violently, and then also reflect on this email that I quoted. So consider the statement that I made a few years ago when I did the Attracting Abundance workshop. I said that the day when we detach ourselves from the need to be loved, and listen carefully, everyone. The day when we detach ourselves from the need to be loved, that is when we will find true love. And the day when love departs, you might be saddened because you're human, but not deeply affected because you were never attached to the outcome. And so because you came to understand that love is not something that you own, but it's something that is to be shared, you do not have to defend it. Right? If something doesn't belong to you, then you don't have to defend it. So if you understand love properly, that love is I'm supposed to share it and give it, right? Then you don't have to defend it because it's not yours. And the same with Islam. You don't have to defend Islam, because Allah says in the Quran that I will protect this faith. Allah says that نَحْنُ نَزَّلْنَا ذِكْرَ وَنَحْنُ عَلَيْهَا لَحَافِظِينَ, that we have sent down the Quran and we will protect it. You don't have to defend it, it doesn't belong to you.